Shalom Aleichem, we're learning the Sicha of Vaera Dalid. And the Sicha is based on the Farbrengen of Shabbos Parshas Vaera, Tafshin Chav Zayin, 1967. Now, this is quite a fascinating Farbrengen. Quite a few of the Sichas made it into Likutei Sichas. For example, here's something that we learned from Avtzon, and that made it to Chelik Chav Aleph. Then the Rebbe went into this Sicha, and the Rebbe started like this. It's customary recently that we explain a pasuk Chumash with Pirush Rashi, and we also have an obligation to finish a Pirush Rashi that we learned on the previous parsha on Kiba Apam Hargu Ish, that we didn't answer this stuff. The Rebbe says we'll address it, etc. Now, amongst the people who offered answers to this Rashi, some people wanted to connect it to the Rashi in our parsha about Talat Tzfardea. Because over there it says Ish Lashon Yachid, and over here it's Tzfardea Lashon Yachid. So they wanted to compare the two. And over there also Rashi brings the Medrash before Pshutei Shel Mikra. Just like the Perish and the Pasuk Yirba Apam Hargu Ish, that's what Rashi did, even though usually Rashi brings Pshutei Shel Mikra, and only when there's a difficulty in Pshutei Shel Mikra, then he brings the Drush. But the main Pshat is, the main Perish is Pshat. So the Rebbe says, based on that, let's go into that Rashi of the Parsha, Batalat Tzfardea. And then the Rebbe goes on to the whole Sicha that we learned. And interesting, as the Rebbe was coming to the end of the Sicha, the Rebbe says like this. And the lesson that we could learn between the chiluk between the two pirushim, if Aaron only did the beginning or the end. Also, the lesson we learned regarding how to bring the zulas, the other person, closer, that you should try to finish the pula. But even in a situation where you could only start, you should start, and even if you won't finish, and the Rebbe then added, you should do it dafka mitich simcha betuv levav. You should do it dafka with joy. Like we know what the Frierdiker Rebbe writes regarding going out to war, that you go out to war with a march of victory, even though you're only starting the war. And the Rebbe says, even though it says in Malachim Aleph, I'm just looking for the pasuk. At that stage, there was I think a civil war. The king of the south, sorry, it wasn't a civil war of the Jewish people. There was the northern kingdom of Bnei Yisrael in the north. They were being threatened by Hadad, king of Aram, and Ben Hadad starts threatening him. So the king of Yisrael responds, this was Achav. Achav says, Dabru, he says, let speak to Ben Hadad and say, let not one who arms himself when going to battle boast like one who unfastens his weapons after returning from victory. So in Hebrew it is, Al Yishalel, don't feel all proud. The person that's only starting the war, Kim Fateh, like the person who ends the war. So seemingly that's what the pasuk says. Nevertheless, when you go out to war, you go with a march of nitzachim, and the fact that you're going to the war with incredible bitachon that you'll win, that helps that the nitzachim will be easier. You break through the boundaries of the world. You bring the geula, a geula ruchnis of every individual, and through that the geula klalis, geula min Hashem v'es Mashiach tzikain. Then the Rebbe continued with explaining the Rashi Kiba Apam Hargu Ish, and that made it into Chelik Hey of Likutei Sichas. And then after the Rebbe finished that Sicha, the Rebbe went on and said, so let's add, regarding these two Rashis, the one in our Parsha and the one in Parshas Vayechi, where the Medrash comes before the Pshat, even though L'chayda, that's against the way of Rashi, like he writes in general, because that's only the way it is begalu, revealed. But in hidden, Rashi also has drush and remez and even yena shel Torah, and sometimes he even brings the drush in a revealed fashion, like in these psukim. So the Rebbe says there's a lesson here that every malamed that in a revealed fashion learns pshutei shemek. In other words, that's what their job is, that's what their role is. But the malamed himself has to know the other parts of Torah, even though you're only teaching grade 2. You have to know the other parts of Torah, just like Talmud Bavli is called Bavli because it's mixed from Mikra and Mishnah, so too the Malamed has to be mixed of everything, and then the Pshutei Shel Mikra will be the way it has to be. So Rashi knew everything. Rashi knew Drashim, Remez, and Chassidus. And that made the Pshat the way it should be. And so too in the demand of Yafatzas HaMayanos, that it's not enough to bring the chutz, the mayim to the chutzah, or even the in other words, you have to bring the mayon atzma. You can't only bring the water, the actual source of the water you have to bring, the actual well. People say, how's that possible? There's people that are very far, they don't know, they have no connection to the mayon. They have to first teach them Alef Beis, then you can teach them about other things. And the answer is that the Alef Beis can be filled with the mayon. The Pshutei Shel Mikra could be full with everything. And then even the Aleph is spelt. Like they used to say once upon a time, they used to say, Kometz Aleph is the Aleph of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Because even in the Kometz Aleph, Anochi, the whole Torah. Like Reb Sadia Goyen explains that the Tayag mitzvahs are all fit in the Aseres HaDibros, and Aseres HaDibros are all in Anochi Yelecha, and all the Aseres HaDibros are dafka in Anochi Yelecha, and then more so in Anochi Yelecha, the Baal Shem Tov says everything's in the first word, and the first letter is Aleph. Ananavshik Sabis Yahavis. So Rabbi continues and says that's the way a Malamed is supposed to teach the kid Aleph, that in the Aleph is everything, the ganze Torah. And when you teach Aleph Beis in this way that the Oisius are full of Kedusha, so that's going to have an effect. The Rebbe says that's why you have to teach it in a way of Kometz Aleph up. Even though there are other ways, there's Ivrit B'Ivrit, there's many ways of teaching people Aleph Beis quickly, but no, there's Kedushas HaOisius and Kedushas HaNekudus, and they're two different Kedushas, and don't mix them. And Dafka, when you're done in that way, that's the way it lasts. And for those of you who might be, working with young kids or in preschool, teaching kids in preschool, this is one of the famous Sichas of the Rebbe about how to teach Alef Beis. And the Rebbe says, therefore, you need a Malamed that's a Yeresh Shamayim that will be able to teach in a way that even the Alef Beis will be full of Kedusha. And that's the general idea of a Avtzon Samayanas Chutzah. You bring the Chutzah, the Mayon to the Chutzah. In other words, in the smallest amount of Torah you teach, the whole Torah has to be there, and the Rebbe connected it to a dinner that was going on that week. Fascinating Farbrengen.